Hi guys, my name is Sanjay Gupta and I'm a consultant cardiologist in York, and today's video is entitled Ectopic Heartbeats, How to Get Rid of Them for Good. Okay, as you know, I've done a ton of videos on the subject of ectopic heartbeats, and as a consequence, I've spoken to several thousand people who suffer from ectopic heartbeats, and I've listened to their individual stories. And by far the one common thing I have found is that virtually everyone who complains of ectopics will also admit to having some degree of health-related anxiety, uh, uh, i.e. that they carry with them this fear that something bad will happen to them. And this is something that they've usually carried with them even before the time they suffered their first ever ectopic heartbeat. When I speak to people, they will often say, I was lying in bed, suddenly I started noticing this fluttering or skipped beats or a missed beat followed by a thud, and this caused me great worry, and I didn't know what to do, and I thought my heart was going to stop or I was going to have a heart attack. And then I often ask these people, so what was it that made you so uncomfortable? Was it the sensation of the ectopic heartbeats, or was it the fear of not knowing what may happen as a result of them? And most people give it some thought and then they come back to me and say, it was actually the fear rather than the ectopic heartbeats. If you think about it, yes, the ectopic heartbeats are a little bit uncomfortable. They're not pleasant to feel, but we deal with unpleasant activities all the time. We go to the gym, we put our bodies through so much discomfort, and we cope with that fine. So when you think of actually just the sensation of the ectopic heartbeat, it's not that unpleasant. However, the fear that they may mean something more sinister because it's our heart makes us so much more uncomfortable. You know, it makes our heart go fast. It makes our stomach feel like it's all knotted up. It makes us restless. It makes us warm. And this can be a self-propagating cycle because fear causes adrenaline and cortisol release, which in turn cause us to hyperventilate, cause us to become more inflamed, and as we become more inflamed we get more ectopics, and then patients become even more fearful, and then they start curtailing their things that they like doing, like going to the gym, because they're worried about bringing on these things, and they become more fearful, and then they become more sedentary, and they become more paranoid, and this in turn causes more ectopics, and suddenly the poor patient becomes embroiled in this never-ending vicious cycle, which is so difficult to break away from. So today I wanted to tackle this issue of fear, because I truly believe that if you can tackle the fear, the ectopics will disappear by themselves. In fact, I also believe that many stomach issues, because stomach issues are quite common these days, many stomach issues such as irritable bowel syndrome can also be a physical manifestation of fear. And if you're able to tackle fear, you'll also find that many stomach issues will disappear. Let me give you an example. For example, a lot of people, when they travel, when they fly, okay, they will find that they are not able to go to the toilet for several days afterwards in the new destination, even though they may be eating exactly the same food that they were eating in the previous destination. So why does this physical manifestation happen that people get constipated? And the answer is stress, the stress of traveling. So something that's going on in the mind can have very physical manifestations, such as causing constipation and bowel disturbance. So I think fear, which I think, you know, when you think of stress and anxiety, basically it all boils down to fear as an emotion. Fear can cause very physical, real manifestations, such as ectopic beats and such as stomach problems. So I hate to say this, but there is a huge amount of scaremongering and generation of fear that goes on in the world these days, because fear is extremely profitable. The media plays and profits from your fear. The drug companies profit from your fear. Even healthcare professionals profit from your fear. Every day we read a fearful story about how someone just like you dropped down dead all of a sudden, and then we become extremely fearful. But actually what we forget is that there are millions of people just like us who are not dropping down dead, who are not publicized. The media doesn't publicize that. The media will publicize that one patient out of a million who has suddenly dropped down dead. And we see that and we focus on that, and that generates our fear. And again, you know, another example is every day I get people contacting me and say, my cholesterol is 6 and I'm terrified. You know, I've just found out my cholesterol is 6. I'm terrified. And I say to them, why are you terrified? All it is a number. What does it mean? And they said, well, because we hear that if your cholesterol is high, you can have a heart attack. And I say to them, no, just because your number is high, that doesn't mean you're going to have a heart attack at all. There are people with low numbers who have heart attacks, and there's people with high numbers who never have a heart attack. All it means is that if you study 1 million people then who have heart disease, then those people who have a higher cholesterol, maybe some of them may be more likely to have a heart attack than those people who have a lower cholesterol. But that doesn't mean you're going to be one of them. So this idea of being fearful of something that may or may never happen is in some ways quite irrational, but in some ways propagated widely these days in the media and by pharmaceutical companies and everywhere we go to profit from us. Okay, so the way I look at it, life has only 2 dimensions. There is quantity of life, length of life, and then there's quality of life. Okay, and having spent the best part of my life in healthcare and medicine, I can confidently say one thing for sure, that no matter who you are, where you are, what tests and treatments you've had done, when your time comes, it comes. And there is nothing anyone can do about that, okay? No one can tell you how long you're going to live, and no one can guarantee that they can make you live longer. Just because I'm here talking to you today does not mean that I'm immune to being hit by a car when I go out tonight, okay? So length of life is something we really cannot alter. And therefore, we don't need to worry about it because it is out of our hands. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen. The only thing we can control is our quality of life. And for many of us, fear about our length of life, which we can't control, seems to have a huge negative impact on our quality of life. Fear is what causes ectopics. Fear is what causes anxiety. Fear is what causes depression. Fear is what causes stress. And fear is what is sold to us in bucket loads on a daily basis. Take my word, there is nothing to be fearful of other than fear itself. Ectopics, if you have a structurally normal heart, are nothing to be fearful of at all. They do not mean you'll have a heart attack. They do not mean you'll suddenly drop down dead. They're usually just a manifestation of your fear and not an independent problem per se. They are a symptom of fear, not a disease per se. And this is why if you want to get rid of your ectopics forever, it is important to address your fear first, okay? Once you kill the fear, the ectopics will go away by themselves. I promise you this. And for this reason, I think it's very important to think of things like, to invest in things like mindfulness, CBT, counseling, where you focus on trying to get rid of the fear. Because once you get rid of the fear, not only will you have a better quality of life, but all these other things that we worry about, the things like irritable bowel syndrome, bloating, ectopics, they'll all just go and you'll have a better quality of life. So this is perhaps one of the most important things I can say to you. Let's not worry about things we can't control. Let's concentrate on what we have right now and try and make it the best we can. And if we do so, everyone profits. You profit, your loved ones profit. The only people who don't profit are the pharmaceutical companies. So I hope you found this useful. If you like what you heard, please leave me a message or a comment or a like or share, because I really enjoy doing these. I'm going to start doing more and more. Please come over and visit my website, which is www.yorkcardiology.co.uk. You can talk to me if you wanted using that website. And also I have a Facebook page, which is York Cardiology 1. And I have a Twitter feed as well, which is York Cardiology. So I'm going to try and get more active, but I hope you enjoyed this talk. Thank you so much. All the best. Bye.